Hello, hello, and a happy, beautiful Monday to you all. I am here to report that last night I watched episode 2 of HBO's It, Welcome to Derry, and I feel safe in reporting that the show is still good. So, picking up from episode 1, as always, when I'm talking about episode 2, like I am for this video here, I'm going to do my best to not spoil anything terribly specific. I don't want to ruin the episode for people. But now that we are on episode 2, I'm going to continue under the presumption that if you're watching this video, you have hopefully watched episode 1. So I'm going to not be as cautious when dealing with spoilers that relate specifically to episode 1. Now, with episode 2, I think it's understandable that the intensity meter had to get cranked down a little bit for the second episode. We had to focus in more on establishing who our core characters are. And we also had to start laying some of the groundwork for where this season is going to go. So we don't see as much it encounters. There's not as much action or horror. Not to say that there aren't some great sequences of horror, because I think this episode has, I think it's like 2. There's 2 really, really good scenes. And once again, another thing I'm super excited about with the show is that both of the it encounters in episode 2 are just as inventive, fresh, and horribly disturbing and gross as they were in episode 1, which is incredibly encouraging. And also, we still have not had our first Pennywise sighting. So now I'm curious, if are they going to hold that? Is this going to be more than one season? And you have to excuse me, I'm dealing with some kind of cold or just horrid disease. Is it only going to be one season, or is it going to be 2? Because if it was going to be 2 seasons or potentially more, I could see them kind of holding out on Pennywise until like maybe the last episode or 2, where it's more of a huge drop. But I'll go on with the presumption it's going to be just one season. So again, we've gone 2 episodes in. We have not seen Pennywise up to this point. But as I have said before, the it encounters, the things that the characters experience, are freaking awesome. I think they might even be better than they were in the movies. I mean, the movies had some really, really cool encounters, but you have to remember that a lot of them were derived from what happens in the book, right? So they're not terribly original, right? They're just kind of executing on what was written by Stephen King. But this show is everything feels original. These are gags that they're creating themselves. And we have another one that has to deal with childbirth, as we did in episode 1, where the little boy is hitchhiking and he gets picked up by the family. And you soon realize that the family is not a family. They are a manifestation of it. And the wife gives birth to this evil, like, mutated baby bat creature that ends up like killing a lot of the kids in the first episode that you think are going to be main characters. And in episode 2, we have another like birth related scene. So there's something going on with this season with like birth is terrifying, and hopefully there's no soon to be moms watching the show getting freaked out. It's not as bad as it is in the show, though I can't really speak on behalf of the mamas out there.
Don't meet your family, sweetheart.
So the it encounters are great. And the second one that happens in a grocery store that has to deal with one of our core characters, Lily, who in episode 1, we established that Lily's father is killed at a jarring plant that jars pickles, and he is I think like sucked into the machinery in the factory, seemingly like cut into pieces. And there's a really freaky, inventive it encounter focusing on her and the trauma that she has with her dad being killed in the factory. That's all I'm going to say. It's really good. But the core themes of this episode too, and I have some notes written down here. I try to keep track on my phone as I'm watching. Derry does not like diversity. They made that abundantly clear multiple times. So this episode, we really focus in on the Hanlon family, which is Leroy Hanlon, the guy who's in the Air Force. And then this episode, they bring in his wife, Charlotte, and his son, Will. They finally move in and meet up with their husband and father in Derry. So we're focusing on them and how they're adjusting to living in Derry. Leroy himself is kind of dealing with the fallout from episode 1, where he is assaulted in his sleep by these guys that are trying to like get some specs of the new planes they're building out of him. And a good portion of this episode is dealing with who they have arrested for this incident, and they think it's the asshole guy from episode 1 who he refuses to address Leroy when he shows up to the Air Force base. The rest of the episode, after they've incarcerated that asshole guy, is we have Leroy doing some clever sleuthing where he's trying to figure out, did that guy actually do it, and maybe what is actually going on here. There are some nefarious kind of string pulling plots going on with the military. So Leroy is kind of navigating that. Whereas his wife, Charlotte, you can tell that she is trying to think of the right words here, because I have to be a little bit careful. When it comes to like the racism of Derry, I think Leroy's approach is, let's just keep our heads down. Let's not invite trouble upon ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, he's more passive about it and he's more subdued. Whereas Charlotte is much more outspoken. There's a scene where Leroy references her in their previous town where they were living, where she was like making signs, and she's more active and outspoken against this stuff. And there's a few scenes early on where she's out in town and she goes to like a butcher. You can tell that she has like this built-in presumption that everyone is going to dislike her because of the color of her skin. And in the bakery scene, the butcher, the owner of the butcher shop, she thinks says something that she interprets as being offensive, and he was like, no, I don't mean it that way. So she kind of has this built-in preconception that people are going to be prejudiced towards her, and it's not always the case. It's not everyone in Derry. So that was a kind of cool juxtaposition between her experience with racism versus Leroy and how he handles it. And then they also have their son, Will. So Will is now seemingly one of our core main kid characters. Will is very into science. He's kind of opposite of his father. His father is much more like macho, and he's in the military, and he likes baseball. And his son, he likes to read books about science, and he likes telescopes and things like that. And you can tell that there's moments where they're trying to highlight that there is this kind of divide between Leroy and his son, Will, where Leroy doesn't quite understand him. And there is this kind of awkward energy between the family. So something to keep an eye on moving forward. So that was a major focus of the episode, was the Hanlon family, getting them established. The other element that we had, I would call it the B plot for this episode, is dealing with the aftermath of episode 1, where all of these children are brutally murdered inside of this theater. And we have this character, Ronnie Grogan, who is the daughter of, I don't know if Hank Grogan is the owner of the theater. I think he might be the owner of the theater, or maybe he just works there. But she is essentially dealing with the fear that the town is going to pin the murders on her father, because the police have not been able to find any of the bodies of these kids, but they find Lily and they find Ronnie, and they know that they were both there in the theater. There's blood everywhere, and now these other kids are missing. So something happened, and there's pressure on the police from some of the more, racist town officials or people that are on the board that like vote for, whoever is going to be the police chief, that kind of stuff, that are pressuring him like, dude, you need to go arrest Hank Rogan. We all know it was him. So Ronnie's trying to desperately prevent her father from being wrongfully accused of these crimes. And that was like the core of this episode, was kind of watching these two families deal with the prejudice of Derry. And then the two other things I want to mention really quick was they did confirm that Dick Halloran is a character in the show. Dick Halloran being the guy from The Shining.
Yeah. What's up, Doc?
And so Dick Halloran is using his abilities that the military is aware he has some sort of ability. And he is helping the military locate something that is in Derry. So the military presence here, A, I guess they're working on new planes. And then B, they're doing all of this mass excavation, digging for something. And that's all I will say. But Dick Halloran, because of his ability to shine, is seemingly getting visions and is able to help the military locate something. So I thought that was really interesting. The military is like aware that he has a gift. It felt very like just strange, like almost like juxtaposed with like the idea of like the 1960s military. But they're using this guy who has like psychic powers to help them locate stuff. This episode had like a very, like it almost had like a Stranger Things-ish vibe, right? Where it's like the government's doing weird stuff. There's like scheming plots from the military that they're hiding from the public. They've got this dude who's got like psychic powers that's helping them find something. It had like a Stranger Things kind of vibe. And it was fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing where the show goes. I don't want to spoil again anything in terms of what it is the military is looking for. Now they kind of hint. I have an idea of what they're looking for. I think there's a chance it could be a little wonky if it is what I think it's going to be. But I'm also really intrigued by where this is going to go. So the show has established itself a really good foundation. And it has really good scares. I love all the it encounters. I already talked about them, but this episode, just like episode 1, has some really, really awesome it encounters. The one near the end with Lily in the grocery store is really awesome. I kind of spoil it with the thumbnail, so I apologize about that. And we should touch on Lily. She is kind of losing it, and I guess at the end of the episode is sent back to, I believe it's called Juniper Hill, like a psych ward that she apparently has been in before, and she is sent back there. So we'll see how that plays out for her, but she's the one character that's kind of like just circling the drain, going down into this pit of like madness. So they have something interesting going on with her. We'll do a quick character rundown, just for my sake, and then if anyone has confusion of who all the characters are, we're just going to do a really fast hit list. I'll throw up some pictures next to me that we can take a look at. But we've got Lily, who's like the sad girl that I just mentioned. She's one of the kids. We have Ronnie Grogan, who's the daughter of the theater owner or employee. We've got Marge, who is this like dorky, cringy chick who like just desperately wants to be part of the it crowd at school. We have Will, who I touched on, who is Leroy's son, who's the science kid, very introspective and sweet. And then he meets this guy, Rich. I think one of my favorite scenes in episode 2 is when Will meets Rich, who again, Rich, I don't know what it is with like Stephen King stuff and the kid named Rich being the funny kid. But it seems like this new Rich is going to be a comic relief type character. There's a really good scene where when Rich and Will first meet, they're both in the hallway of their school. I think it's during a lunch period because the hallways are pretty dead. And they're both kind of standing at their lockers opposite the hallway of each other, eating and talking to one another. And then the pack of like popular girls walks by, and Rich is staring at the pretty main girl. I don't know what her name is. But as they walk by, the main chick of the popular girls doesn't even look at him. But Marge is kind of like near the back. And she kind of is like looking at him and they make eye contact. And I think Marge is like under the impression that he's looking at her and he's really not. And she tries to act all that she's hot shit. And then the girl behind her gives him the finger. It was probably my favorite little moment of the episode. But yeah, we got plots in motion, man. We've got plots in motion. We got the military digging for something. We've got Dick Halloran in here using his shine abilities to help them find the thing. We've got a bunch of kids trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I'm excited. I think that's the most important thing about the show is that when I watch it, I'm having fun. And when it's over, I'm excited and I'm looking forward to the next episode. And the big change, as I said, the first episode felt like a little like, one shot from like the It movies, right? It just felt like you took the core nucleus of the It movies and you made like a little one shot. This episode 2, it starts to feel like Stranger Thingsy. Like it's got this like small town. There's this mystery. The government's involved. You got these kids on bikes. You just have the brutality and the violence of It. So it's cool. It's like a more adult, HBO version of Stranger Things, kind of. And I'm here for it. I think it's amazing. I think it's really good. I'm looking forward to episode 3. And when that drops next weekend, I will hopefully get my review out sooner than this week. But like I said, I'm a little bit under the weather, and we got done watching it last night, and I was like, I just got to go to bed. But if you're here and you watched, as always, I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.